What's going on, NuCanoe Nation, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another Unlimited podcast. We got our man Parker McDonald in the house. We're going to be talking about a little preseason deer hunting. Deer season's around the corner. I know my man just had an epic turkey season as well. Talk about how he utilizes the NuCanoe to get to those far-to-reach places where the big boys roam. So he's from Southern Ground Hunting. If you guys aren't following him on YouTube, go give him a follow. I'll drop the link to his YouTube channel in the chat for you guys. But he's always putting out some pretty epic, consistent content throughout the year. And just happy to sit down and chat with my man. He's a return guest to the show. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Parker McDonald. What's up, my man?
Hey, how's it going, Brian? You doing all right?
Yeah, man. Good to see you. Good to see you. Always nice to sit down and chat with a fellow hunter, you know.
Absolutely.
I'm not as how should I say this? I'm not as established of a hunter as you are, but I enjoy my time in the woods for sure.
Man, if established means being absolutely covered in poison ivy all over my face, I don't want it. You know what I mean?
I hear you, man. I know.
I'm looking at you through one eye right now because one eye's just about swollen shut.
Yeah,
like Popeye.
I've experienced that before, not with poison ivy, but I got a chemical in my eye one time, and I remember like for a week I walked around just one eye, you know, and everybody's like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "You don't even want to know." But
I got it all over my arms right now. Like my arm is one big blister, pretty much right now. Like, and it feels like I'm petting an iguana. Like it's just scaly, and I got calamine on it, so it's dry. Oh, and then it's like in my eye, on my left eye. I got a little bit on my other arm over here, but it's not too terribly bad. I did the Tennessee velvet hunt this last weekend, and the very last night that I hunted, I climbed a tree, and I hadn't climbed a tree because it's a rifle hunt, so you can rifle hunt these bean fields in this specific zone because of CWD. And so I'd been sitting on the ground most of the time, and this specific time we kind of team hunted an area. We surrounded a big giant area where a guy had seen a bachelor group of bucks, and one of them was a substantial deer. And I was kind of like, okay, I need to be up. I need to be in this tree. It's covered in poison ivy. Freaking suck it up and get over it. And unfortunately, I wasn't the one that pulled the trigger, but fortunately, somebody else did, and we actually killed the deer.
nice
on this hunt. It was a 167-inch full velvet public land whitetail.
Yeah,
Just a tank, man. And the deer ended up dying. Another guy named Jacob Emery was the one who shot him. And Jacob was like really close to where I was at. Like we were kind of hunting the same little section just in case the deer went out that direction. And I hear the deer running through the bean field because they're like chest high beans. And I can hear it, and I'm like, okay, there's a deer right there, and I still can't see it yet. Can't see it. And then I hear him, Matt, pow! He shoots it, and man, it was a cool deal. It was one of those things that we all kind of felt like, you know, we all killed the deer. Jacob pulled the trigger, and I'm not trying to take anything away from him. Like that was really cool. He made an excellent shot, but it was one of those things where we all were like, dude, this is legit right here.
Yeah.
Like we just all killed 167-inch whitetail, all non-residents, all from out of state, killed this big buck. And it was a cool experience. So the poison ivy is worth it.
Yeah.
I will take it. But I wish I wasn't so allergic.
we got a guy tuning in, Raynor Gilman on Gilliam. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. I'm known for doing that, but he says, ditch the lotion and use hand sanitizer on the poison ivy. It dries it right up. I don't know.
That sounds painful.
That sounds like it's gonna burn. It's gonna burn a little bit.
that sounds. I mean, but I would take the burn, to be honest with you. Like, if it gets rid of it, like I would do a whole lot of things to get.
Do you think you got it in your eye because it was on your hand or something, and you rubbed your eye?
I rubbed my eye. That's
Yeah.
like it was like 93 degrees with zero wind
Oh,
this
jeez.
specific day, and so I hiked a good ways to get in there, and then climbed the tree. And by the time I climbed the tree, I'm just pouring with sweat, and there's no wind to cool you off, and so you're like rubbing your eyes and doing all kinds of stuff, trying to get somewhat comfortable, and you just don't. You just
Yeah.
got to understand that for these early season southern hunts, comfort is not going to be a thing that you achieve ever.
No, and like I was telling you, after you told me about the poison ivy, a good friend of mine who just moved to Tennessee, he's been dealing with ticks, and
Yeah.
that's something serious too with Lyme disease and things like that, man. So it's yeah, I mean, goose season opens up here Thursday, so I'm getting ready to go play in the swamps a little bit, because deer season doesn't open for us till Wisconsin's the middle of September, and then Illinois is the beginning of October. So,
Yeah.
I got a little time before deer season kicks in. So I'm gonna go play in the swamps a little bit, but
Absolutely.
same kind of stuff, man. So, guys, gals, be cautious of your surroundings while you're in the woods, and be sure to check your body when you get home, because I've had some friends that have dealt with Lyme disease, and it's not a fun thing to play with. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you got like alpha gal that can get you, which basically gives you a red meat allergy. Which, if you're a deer hunter, I don't know a single deer hunter that doesn't eat red meat. That's kind of why we do it.
Yeah, right.
And if you get that, man, I mean, like that'll mess you up. I treat everything with permethrin,
Yeah,
and I probably put more than the recommended amount on all my clothes, and it seems to work, man. I mean, like I was walking through bean fields, walking through CRP, chest high or over my head all week, and I didn't have one tick on me. So,
that's good.
um, it definitely works. I have heard a few people that still get it even with the permethrin, but you're talking about like one tick versus 1,000 of them. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. It's one of those things, and I know that's a big thing too, right? Is with permethrin, like people think it has odor, but it's virtually odorless, right? If my memory serves me correct.
I mean, down here, the odor doesn't really matter because it's 90 degrees and you're going to sweat and you're already going to have an odor. So it's like, it does matter. I mean, deer are still going to smell you, but there's almost nothing you can do about stink. You're going to
Sure.
sweat, you're going to smell. I smelled like a nice mixture of sweat, Tech poison ivy stuff, Repel 40% beat, and Thermacell and permethrin. Like I smelled like a mixture of all those things. So, it is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah, you're gonna have a little bit of that. That's where the wind comes into play, my friends.
Yep, absolutely.
So, I mean, rewind a little bit. You guys just harvested an absolute monster of a deer, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
for those out there, like, what did you guys do to find that deer? You know, uh, Kind of figure out his pattern, his territories, things like that, and then the setup going into that, because I think that's a big thing that a lot of people overlook. They think, oh, I'm going to walk into the woods and I'm going to harvest a deer, and that's going to be that. And I know there's a lot more that goes into that, and obviously I know a lot of that stuff, but some folks out there who may be interested in hunting don't know what goes into that.
Yeah, so a quick backstory on this specific hunt. We were in Tennessee on the velvet hunt. Tennessee, several years back, opened up an opportunity for 3 days of hunting in August. And at first, it was private land only with a bow. But then the CWD got pretty bad in the part of the state, and so they have this CWD zone. And so they actually opened it up on these just a few public land areas where you can hunt it with a rifle. And so obviously these a bunch of ego-driven hunters are like, oh, I can do it with a rifle. I'm going to kill a giant buck every year on this velvet hunt. Let me tell you, number one, you probably know this in Wisconsin, CWD will decimate a population of deer quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
On top of all the things that the wildlife department does to basically decimate the population. So they offer more, like you can kill more bucks in this zone than any other zone in Tennessee. You can kill more deer. If you kill 2 does, you get another buck tag. So people are killing a lot of does. So like, if I'm being honest with you on this hunt, in 2 days of scouting and 3 days of hunting, I saw 1 deer with my eyes while I had a gun in my hand. Like there's just not many deer in this area. But one of the things that I know from where I live in Alabama, a low deer density area can sometimes grow the biggest deer, the biggest bucks, because there's not competition for food,
Right.
you know, especially out in Tennessee where you have some agriculture. You've got lots of bean fields, and they're not just absolutely pounding them because they don't have to. The deer are living inside of the beans during these early season hunts. Like you're talking about chest high bean fields. A deer can live all day long without ever even having to do anything. And when they do stand up, all you can see is the top of their antlers sometimes. You know,
Yeah.
doe,
Yeah.
in some of these beans, a doe, you literally won't see them walking through the beans. And so it's a hard hunt, man. Like, people think it would be easy, and if you see a deer, the good thing is you can shoot it with a rifle, so that's cool, but the chances of seeing a deer are relatively low. And so what ends up happening on this hunt is a lot of times you'll get people who will kind of team up. So you'll have a group of guys that go together and they'll hunt individually, and then eventually just be like, we should just team up in this area. So that's what we did. My buddy Taylor was just driving around one morning and happened to spot a bachelor group of like 5 or 6 bucks. I don't remember how many he said it was, but 2 of them were substantial. They were this one that was about 167 inches. He said, you know, from a distance, he was like, I know he's bigger than 130. I know that. I can't really tell anything else. And then there was another buck that was like a goofy looking deer that through some like local intel, we all kind of believe there's a buck that they think that the local people there believe is about 180-inch deer, and we think it could be that one.
Okay.
Just because like locals know, you know what I mean? Like everybody kind of knew this deer, and
Sure.
honestly, this group of bucks was living about 100 yards away from the highway, so people were seeing them all summer long. Anyway, so he was driving and just kind of glassing fields and happens to see some movement and sees this bachelor group with both of these bucks, this 160 and this big goofy looking deer and a bunch of other like smaller deer. And so he tries to put a stalk on them. They end up disappearing in the bean field. He comes back to everybody, and this was the part that was really cool. Is he himself was like, I am not willing to just do this on my own. Like, we need a team of people. I know where these deer are at. I know where I saw them disappear, and it's probably where they bedded down. We need to just surround this area. So we all got together. There was about 7 hunters in this group. Some guys from the YouTube channel called The Hunting Grounds, and my buddy Clay Harper, who ended up also killing a buck that night in a different spot, and Jacob Emery, who is he has a YouTube channel called Dad of 3 Outdoors, DO3 Outdoors, and then Taylor, of course, and he has Revive Outdoors, and myself. And so we all just kind of set up. We met up at about 4:00, and we could see the field from like this one central location. And we were watching it. We were looking at it and saying, okay, I'm going to go back there. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to do this. And we surrounded this field, and effectively, because right at dark, I can hear a deer running through the bean field, like right in front of me. And I'm like, man, I know there's a deer out there. Somebody's going to shoot him eventually, you know, like I can see him. He's kind of coming my direction. And then I hear Matt, bow. And Jacob Emery is actually the one who got to pull the trigger. But the cool thing about this is Taylor had actually seen the buck in a private. There was one little private bean field in the middle of all this public, and that freaking buck was feeding in that bean field. Of all the bean fields that he could have been in, he was in the one little private block. So Taylor can see him, and he's like, man, if it wasn't a private field, it would have been a 60-yard shot for him.
Sure.
But he couldn't do anything about it. So he gets down out of his tree, runs out onto the property line, holds his hands up in the air like this, like shaking branches and moving beans, trying to just basically spook this deer to us.
Sure.
And so that's what happened. He spooks the deer runs onto public, and Jacob shoots him. And so we all came together for this like recovery in the middle of this bean field. And it was like a sense of accomplishment for everybody.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like it's a hard thing. And Taylor keeps driving this point home. We did a podcast on my podcast about it last night. And he's driving this point home that hunting doesn't have to be a selfish sport. And admittedly for me, like it is most of the time, you know, like I'm the guy that goes out by myself on my boat, you know, and in the middle of the woods. Like I'm not trying to help other people shoot a deer.
Sure.
I'm trying to shoot a deer, you know what I mean? And so, being able to kind of experience this new thing of team hunting and everybody getting to have a part of it. Now, Jacob's going to take the mount and take the deer. He's the one that's going to get it mounted, and it's going to be hanging on his wall. I tried to convince him to cut little pieces of antler off of it and send it to all of us, but he wasn't liking that idea too much.
How do you cut up a rack from a 167-inch velvet buck?
Well,
like,
you know,
that's like breaking the ultimate rule, you know, or something like that.
We all get 17 inches basically of velvet antler that we can hang up and say, you know, that's
we were
that's
part
our
of
buck.
that.
Yeah, that's our buck. No, but he was really happy. We all got to experience it together. We all got it out of the woods together. Just a big group of guys out there. I've done it a lot by myself. I have been in those moments where you get to sit there and enjoy it and do it by myself. But there is definitely something to be said for having a bunch of friends around and everybody celebrating together and just enjoying the heck out of it. That was pretty cool, man. Like it was a cool deal. And the fact that a bunch of guys who were from out of state, none of us lived in Tennessee, went out and were able to, on the first try, like on our first shot, kill this just world-class booner, when there were a bunch of locals hunting him. That's cool. That's a really cool thing. I hate it for the locals, and I know they're probably not happy about it. There's going to be somebody that hears the podcast or listens to or watches the video that's going to be like, dadgummit, son of guns. But you know, it was a really cool thing. It was a neat experience.
No, I totally get that on a couple of different levels. Like lately, I've been driving around doing some scouting up in Wisconsin for waterfowl, but at the same time paying attention to deer. And it's like the other night I was driving by a bean field, and all I could see was this doe's head, and then I remember it vividly. Like all of a sudden you'd see like a brown spot with little white spots on it, like hopping, and there was a little fawn just hopping through, and you couldn't see the thing other than the back as it was hopping through the beans. And it's I could only imagine, you know, and that's what I was thinking about. I was like, man, like you're not going to see a deer till it's on top of you. Not only that, but you know, there's so many leaves still on the trees, like things like that. Like they're just you know, blending right into their environment. So that makes it tough. But, you know, at the same aspect, like the last 2 seasons, you know, I've been hunting hard with some friends that are just now getting into hunting a little bit. And it's been super enjoyable to share those experiences with them, like them seeing a deer or shooting their first deer, or, you know, helping me drag a deer out of the woods, man. Like there's something cool about that, you know, the brotherhood aspect of hunting for sure.
Absolutely. I get jealous, man, because there's a lot of videos from guys up in PA doing deer drives, or Wisconsin doing deer drives, or Iowa. And it's just not really like on a lot of the public out here, deer drives are illegal. Like you can't do them.
Yeah.
And so you get kind of jealous of, and we weren't doing a deer drive. I will say that. Like, it wasn't like a drive. We
Sure.
were basically trying to
Corner him.
corner
the
him,
deer.
surround him. We all had
Yeah.
rifles, right? Like, we've got rifles. Everybody's a fairly safe distance apart from each other. If you can see 150 yards, then the next guy who's 350 yards away from you, he's a safe distance away. And, we're all mindful of where everybody is sitting. So we try not to shoot in that direction. However, a 167-inch deer could probably change somebody's mind really quick. So, I mean,
good news is I shot the deer. Bad news is shot Bob. He fell out of his tree. He'll be okay though.
Yeah, we'll make it work. I've got a lot of opportunity to make other friends. I only get so many opportunities at 167-inch buck in my life.
Right.
But no, it was a good time, man. I say it was a good time. That moment was a good time. The rest of it sucked pretty bad. We were all like, because down here this time of year, you're talking about over 90 degrees just about every day. And so you get mosquitoes and you get the ticks and you get the poison ivy and you get the heat and
humidity.
The humidity, and you realistically have about a 30-minute window when you might see a deer in the morning, and maybe an hour window that you might see a deer at night in the evening. So the rest of the day is kind of like, do you sit around and take a nap, or do you go out and try to scout? If you go and scout, you could risk bumping deer out of the fields that they're in,
Sure.
And so you don't know really what to do. Like, it's a hard thing. And like, some of the guys, my buddy Clay, who ended up also killing a buck that same evening, in the spot that he was in, it wasn't in the same bachelor group. It kind of came from a completely different area, but the spot he was in produced for him, so that was cool. But he saw deer. He missed a buck the night before that. He saw bucks just about every single time. And I'm talking to him. Me and him were staying in a room together, and I was like, bro, like, I'm not seeing a deer. Like, what the heck is up? Like, what am I doing wrong? And we had been bouncing ideas off each other the whole time. He's like, man, honestly, you're not doing anything different. It's just kind of a luck game when you go out to sit over a bean field. You don't really know for sure that there's going to be a deer there, but sometimes there are. It's just, I'm real big on the scouting aspect of things. That's why I gave myself 2 days for this hunt to go and scout, and it did me practically zero good. Like, it did no good for me. But it's kind of the way it works sometimes. And at the end of the day, we had a very memorable evening, and not one that I'll forget anytime soon. I have seen 2 deer in my lifetime that were 160 inches plus, and both of them were shot on the velvet hunt in Tennessee. So, like, you go every year because there is that opportunity.
Sure. Yeah, bucks are grouped up together, feeding together, so you get into one, you get into a bunch,
Yep.
That's totally cool. Yeah, I've never done a velvet hunt like that. I mean, once in a while you get some still in velvet, like that first weekend in the middle of September when Wisconsin opens. You'll hear about a couple being shot that are still in full velvet. And I think, isn't it like North Dakota or South Dakota? They got a velvet hunt too, right?
North Dakota. Yeah, I did that hunt last year.
That's right. Yeah, I think we talked about that. Mm-hmm. You were up there with Tethered, weren't you?
Yep.
Yeah, I was. Right on. Yeah.
And on the last day, the very, very last day, I rented a car and went and hunted public land. We were hunting private land the whole time, just not seeing much. I was like, bump this, man. I'm going to go find a deer that I can hunt. And so I rented a car and drove up the road to some public and ended up shooting the very last day. It wasn't anything, special. It wasn't a big buck or anything, but it was a small velvet buck. And I think I was the only person that killed a deer on that trip, because it was just early season, dude. It's tough. It's hard.
Yeah.
And it's depressing. And that's why you go to these states like North Dakota or Kentucky. I'm leaving for Kentucky on Friday. And you go to them because there is the opportunity of a giant. Like,
sure.
And on these public pieces, obviously there's a lot of people. And so deer getting bumped around. So more than likely, you're not going to see just a ton of deer because it's kind of the same thing. They're not up and moving around a whole lot, but there is that chance for a deer of a lifetime, and so it keeps me going out there, dude. And like early season bucks, they're a cool thing. I do it every single year. I get poison ivy all over my face every year. I get ticks on my nether regions every single year. Like it's just kind of part of it. Everybody,
Yeah.
my wife, I try to come home and make her feel sorry for me, but she doesn't. She's like,
yeah, you're the one that wanted to go run around in the woods, right?
Mm-hmm. You knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
Can't do anything about it.
Our man Mike Schmitz is in the chat. He says most people don't associate big deer with Tennessee, but we definitely have them, and that's true, man. I mean,
yeah,
I've always heard that like Tennessee deer kind of on the small side, but I mean, year after year, you see big deer being shot down there, and then
I believe the world record non-typical came out of Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken.
I'll fact check that for you in a second.
There was a couple years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It was a giant. I mean, it was huge. That was killed in Tennessee, and I think it was some type of record. I can't remember what record it was, but it's a cool state. Tennessee has a lot of cool opportunities. I specifically like it for turkey hunting. I mean, I really get my Tennessee license just so I can turkey hunt Tennessee. But I always come back from Tennessee thinking that it's underrated most of the time. It's a southern state that hunts a lot more like a Midwestern state. I will say that. But there are also a lot of hunters. It's a high pressure state. You go out there for turkeys, and you're going to be dealing with a ton of people most of the time. Deer is a little bit different, but you do a hunt at the end of August. Most people are not. Anybody from Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, like they have an opportunity to hunt with a rifle for velvet bucks, and so people go. And they hate it most of the time, but they still go. And so you deal with a lot of people out there for sure.
Sure. Yeah, I see Mike in the chat, but I did find it. It's a non-typical. Look at this thing, dude.
Yep, that's the one.
47-point whitetail buck. Where was it? 312 inches.
It's a big deer.
Insane.
Most people are looking for most people a 200-inch deer is a once in a lifetime thing. And this joker out here just goes off and
smokes three.
Hold my beer.
Yeah, I think it said it had 47 points. That's insane. That's insane. Those non-typical deer, man, they can grow some funny racks, man, but they're definitely cool to look at for sure.
Oh yeah. One day, man, I hope I have an opportunity at a deer like that, like, and it goes back to like people ask me a lot of questions about like tactics and stuff, and we talk about a lot of tactics on my YouTube channel and on the Southern Ground Hunting YouTube channel and on the podcast. We talk a lot about a lot of tactics, but I think the number one most important tactic is going.
Yeah,
just go and spend as much time in the woods as you can. Like I can tell you, there was not a lot of like big buck tactics that were used in this Tennessee hunt. But we all went knowing it was going to suck and knowing it was going to be miserable, because it is absolutely every single year, but also understanding that like there are big bucks around in the area, and before they shed velvet is about the best time to kill them. A lot of times. I know a lot of people who, in Kentucky especially, who think the best time to kill a mature deer is in the early season before they shed their velvet. And especially if you're running cameras or you got private land and you can kind of know their pattern.
Sure.
It's it is an incredibly effective time to do it. And so I think for me, that's the thing is like, I want to be I want to be the best deer hunter I can be. I want to use tactics and think hard and, you know, do what it is that I do, you know, scouting and figuring out terrain features and food sources and all that good stuff. And that's all good, but it doesn't really matter if I don't go.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
a lot of people get lucky every single year, and luck is not a bad thing. And even for the guys who are incredibly skilled, a lot of the hunt is based on sheer luck.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have you heard, well, should have gone hunting this morning, big deer walked in front of my camera.
Yeah,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean?
We
And
hear that all the time.
that instance happened to me last season. I had a camera set up on a piece of public land up in Wisconsin, man, and I was gonna go that morning, and I was like, screw it. You know, it's still early in the season, and sure enough, 3 of the biggest bucks in that area that I had seen were standing in front of my tree 15 minutes after sunrise. And I'm like, really,
The way it works.
Mike Schmidt said, typical deer, beautiful, but give me a freak nasty one with drop tines and I'll cut down the tree you're in if it means I get to take the shot.
That's awesome.
But
That is awesome.
I mean, I agree with you 100% on that fact, man. You could do so much research, so much scouting, you know, this, that, the other, plant food plots, do that, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, if you're not out in the woods, like you're not gonna, you know, get that opportunity, so to speak. But
Yep.
and
Absolutely.
my favorite saying, I always tell my buddy Jay, because he's always giving me a hard time, like, dude, you're out hunting again. I'm like, yeah, like I want to put meat in my freezer, bro. What do you think? And
Yeah.
I'm like, you can't kill him from the couch. Might as well be in the woods, you know?
Yep.
I don't care
Absolutely.
if it's raining, windy, whatever, dude. I mean, you never know what's going to walk in front of that tree, you know?
Absolutely.
So super cool, man. Real quick before we let you go, you know, give us a outlook on the rest of your year, man. What you got coming up, what people should be watching out for, and when our video is going to start dropping on the YouTube for this season's hunts and stuff, man.
Well, so we had a pretty cool addition to the channel. My buddy Matt Reeves is an absolute killer, man. He's a good dude, Southern guy, excellent deer hunter, and he's been doing a channel on his own for a while. And he's going to be joining forces with me. He's going to be coming onto the Southern Ground channel, and so we're actually dropping his videos right now,
Nice.
currently. And so if somebody's just itching to find new stuff to watch, if they're getting in the zone, getting in the mood for it, some of his videos are going to be dropping here in the next little bit. And then also, like I said, I got Kentucky coming up this Friday. I'm leaving on Friday, and I'll be there for a week. And fingers crossed, man. The hope is that I'm able to kill one and one or two. You know, I'm telling you, I am a sucker for a freezer queen, and the first doe that I see that gives me a shot, she's probably gonna catch these hands. And so hopefully we can do that, kill a buck or two. Matt's going to be there as well, and so my hope is that we're able to have some video from that hunt coming down the pipe soon. And then like every year, man, like I try to load down. We have a cool deal here in Alabama and in a lot of southern states where our rut actually is later than most states. And so I'm able to go on out of state hunts in early November and hunt the rut in. I'm going to be hopefully going to Ohio and then potentially Tennessee and potentially Kentucky, depending on if I kill a buck this week or not. And so I can do that, and then I can go home, do Thanksgiving, do all my good stuff with the family, and I can go home, and my rut starts the first 2 weeks of December. Is when my rut at home is. And so
that's cool.
The hope is that we have a lot of rut action on the channel coming, you know, in the next few months. And the other cool thing is if I don't tag out at home, where I hunt here at home, there's other parts of Alabama and Mississippi where the rut's in January and February. So you're able
It's wild.
to chase the rut around pretty well, and it's a whole lot of fun, and it's tiring. It'll wear you out, but it's round about March or so when you're looking back on the season, it's like, man, that was awesome.
Heck
And
yeah.
so I got a few states, like I said, Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, probably Mississippi, and I have a Georgia tag that doesn't expire until beginning of January. So I may be hopping over to Georgia
Nice.
and hunting there in Florida. And yeah, it's going to be really cool, man. I love going on these Midwestern hunts, and I don't know that you could consider Kentucky to be a Midwestern state, but it's kind of like a South Midwestern state, and
Sure,
it hunts a lot more like a Midwestern state because
yeah.
more deer and bigger deer. But I love going out there and doing those hunts. But man, I have a soft spot in my heart for hunting in the South. I really like I feel like I'm more proud of a deer. I'm more proud of a 3.5-year-old buck that I kill here at home in the South, or a 2.5-year-old deer that I might kill in Florida or South Georgia or Mississippi than I would be a 4.5 or 5-year-old in Ohio or Kentucky. Just because like we talked about before, the elements that you have to deal with down here
are tough.
They're tough and they're brutal. And so you get this sense of accomplishment. And I'm not trying to take away from anybody's deer anywhere else. I know that hunting in Wisconsin, you got to deal with the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
You're dealing with cold and ice and
frozen hands,
snow. Yeah, you got all kinds of different things that you're dealing with.
Sure.
But I do love hunting down here, and so I try to set my season up to where the majority of my hunting happens. In the Southeast, because I think it's important. Number one, it's a cool challenge for me to go out and do that. And I hear a lot of people kind of complain about it, like, man, sure must be nice to live up in Ohio, or must be nice to live in Indiana or Illinois. And I'm like, man, but it's nice to live here too. Like, think of all the cool stuff. Like, you can chase the rut all over. If all you ever do is buy an Alabama license, you can chase the rut from November until the end of season in February.
That's crazy.
There's a deer there's a buck chasing a doe somewhere in the state from those time period.
Sure.
And I think that is cool. And Florida's the same way. Florida's rut, South Florida rut's going on like right now. Like they're getting after it right now, chasing rut and bucks.
That's
and
crazy.
So like I think it's a cool thing that people forget about. And I also I don't like the cop out that people use of like, well, where I'm at, we just don't have big deer. It's like, no, you do. You just don't know how to hunt them.
Yeah, right. You just don't know. You just need to put in the homework, man.
Yeah, and when all the puzzle pieces kind of come together, and you're able to wrap your hands on a southern deer, to me, it's just it's a special moment.
Sure.
It's a unexpected. You never go out into any hunt, even if it's a peak of the rut hunt here, and think I'm going to kill a big deer. When I go to Kentucky, there are days when I'm there and I'm like, I'm probably going to kill a deer today.
Yeah.
And you just don't get that down here. And so whenever it does happen, it's a pretty cool feeling. I love it.
Nice, dude. Nice. I love it, man. Well, I wish you nothing but the best of luck this season, and I'll be following along, seeing what you get your hands on, and looking forward to it, man. It's always cool watching what you got going on, and and that's the thing too, right? Like, you mentioned age class of deers and things like that, and it's like you've always been a guy that whatever you harvest is a trophy to you, and that's kind of the way I view it as well. I'm not always just focused on the 167-inch, deer. You know what I mean? I'm focused on feeding my family, enjoying my time in the woods, and taking that all in, and just making memories. You know what I mean? So super
Absolutely.
cool. I love that aspect about you, and your content and the way you do that thing. It's you're not afraid to shoot does, which is always good to see, man. Because I know last year you slayed them.
I think shooting a doe shooting does early season, because like we talked about, it's really hard.
Yeah.
Our season here in Alabama doesn't open until October, so you're kind of hunting, like finding persimmons and food sources like acorns, things like that.
Sure.
And when you shoot does, in my opinion, you get like live practice
Sure.
on taking a shot on a living animal, and it's still fun as crap. I love it.
Yeah.
But you're able to kind of work out kinks and stuff. If I miss a doe because I do something stupid, or I realize that there's a flaw in my setup or something like that, it doesn't hurt nearly as bad as whenever it happens when I miss a buck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you want to make sure when that moment of truth comes, like, you are prepared. And so that's why, like, dude, last year I said I'm going to stop killing does at 4, and this year I might do 6. Like, I might shoot 6 of them before I stop trying to hunt them. Because it's freaking fun. It's like October is my favorite time of year, because who doesn't like to killing a deer or two every single week of a month?
Yeah.
That's fun as crap.
Yeah. Not only that, man, but the tasty treats that come afterwards,
Absolutely.
man. You can't beat a doe, man. It's like I always tell my kids, they're delicious. Let's get in.
Absolutely.
So, right on, man. I appreciate you taking the time out tonight to sit down, chat, share some knowledge and stories with us, man. I look forward to seeing what happens this season. Guys, gals, tuning in, watching, or if you're listening later on the podcast platforms, I just dropped Parker's YouTube channel down there in the chat. If you're listening on the podcast platforms, it'll be down in the show description. Go give him a follow, subscribe to that channel, and follow him along. Find his podcast as well on all the major podcast platforms. It's just Southern Ground Hunting, right?
That's it. It's on the Sportsman's Empire channel on that feed, and then you can search Southern Ground Hunting and it's going to pop up.
Yeah. I just see Southern Ground pop up on my Apple podcast thing, and I'm like, all right, play.
That's it.
So right on, man. I appreciate you. We appreciate everybody who tuned in tonight. We're here every Tuesday night. Normally it's 7 Central, 8 Eastern, 5 o'clock out on the West Coast. We went a little early tonight. Parker had an open minute, so we took advantage and we got him on here, man. So we always are flexible with our guests, and we just appreciate them coming on and chatting with us. And we will see you guys next week. Parker, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys next time. If you're out in the woods this season, be safe, be prepared, watch out for poison ivy and ticks. Otherwise, you're going to have a swollen eye like Parker.
You look like the hunchback in Notre Dame.
Appreciate you, man. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you.